Now you have this XL bully ban in places like the United Kingdom.
If you're getting this dog to impress people, it's just like getting a car to impress somebody. Nobody cares.
What about the Anatolian Shepherd made you go, you know what? I could make that better.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be in the world. This is Species Canine Podcast. I am Jared, your host, and with me, as always, is the fabulous and the wonderful Taylor. How are you, ma'am?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm doing good. Actually, I'm doing better than good. I got to see you and your lovely fiance this weekend, so I had a great time hanging out and doing some dog training. We got some videos coming up, don't we, shortly, hopefully, maybe?
Yeah, and free puppy care.
No, I don't think about that, but we got some good stuff coming up. So like and subscribe so you don't miss out, because we're getting some great conversations going in the comment sections of the video. So keep it up, keep sharing. So what is on the agenda today?
So the working title of this video is Dude, Nobody Cares About Your Corso. And it's not meant to focus just on the Corso, but I'm using that as a starting point. The topic is going to be people who use dogs as like their self-identity and where there are a lot of problems with that.
Okay. So you know me, I'm a want definitions of words. So how are we defining like self-identity? Are we talking about like, little guy, big truck scenario here or what?
Yeah, so self-identity, like the way that you see yourself and the way that you want other people to see you is your self-identity. And a lot of people do a lot of different things to try and change the way they feel about themselves and change the way other people see them. And sometimes dogs are involved.
Yes. Well, there's the old saying, dogs are a reflection of their owner. They kind of like look like them. Like, if someone's like overweight, their dog's gonna be overweight, right? Because neither one are out walking, exercising a lot. They're just at home. And then you get, people that are marathon runners and they take their dog with them everywhere and they're really in shape and they work out. There's definitely a correlation between a person and their dog. There's also I want to say probably a stereotype as well for people wanting to get certain dogs because their look doesn't matter what the breed is. And, I kind of fall into that. That's the reason I got Taliana, because one, I'd never heard of the breed. I'd never heard of Beaucerons before, but primarily because I wanted a dog that had the high drive, that could be easily trained, have the energy and the focus and everything else, but no one ever heard of them. But
the difference is you're not falling into this category because your self-esteem is not dependent on Taliana. We see a lot of usually men that maybe he doesn't feel so great about himself, or he feels like maybe he's not respected, or maybe people don't give him the attention that he wants. And so what does he do? He goes on social media, he sees a big XL bully like a Cane Corso, and it's barking at the camera. It looks tough, it looks scary, and people are talking about how cool this dog is, how rare this dog is, how beautiful this dog is. And you have that consumerism mindset where some people treat dogs like cars and say, I could get one of those. I'm gonna get one of those. And the thing grows up without its drives being met, without any meaningful form of obedience, and likely without any proper socialization. And so by the time this thing is 10 months old, he can't walk it down the street. If you're getting a dog, I'll try not to be crass here. If you're getting a dog because it makes the hair on your arms stand up to think about how big and tough they are, you shouldn't be getting that dog. And that's where we're starting to see a lot of these scary stories. I have a few of them pulled up where kids are getting attacked, neighbors are getting attacked, and people are dying because it's a serious dog. And some of these, the dog is killing the owner because the person has no concept of how to manage resources. All of a sudden, he thinks the couch is his. And my little niece comes over and she wants to sit on the couch and he doesn't like that. Now you have this XL bully ban in places like the United Kingdom, right? They ban those dogs because of stupid people. If you're getting a dog in this vein of, I'm going to get a power breed because I want to feel powerful, it's one of the stupidest things you can do. Go get a motorcycle. Don't put other people in danger because you need to feel that way.
Yeah, well, also, the onus is also on the breeder for some of that, because they're breeding for a look and not traits. They're breeding those traits out of dogs. These dogs no longer have jobs. I remember as a kid growing up in California, I was in the high desert of California, and they would bring sheep through the desert during like early spring. It would be literally like 1,000 sheep, whatever, and they actually had shepherds with working herding dogs. They had mostly like little Aussies and things like that.
Yeah.
And I remember watching them as a kid. Like, it was just amazing what these dogs are doing to move them around, and just listening to the shepherds like just on different whistles and moving the dogs. But you don't see that anymore. Like, where those dogs were where those sheep were at now is a solar field. It's putting that onus on the breeder, not just so much the buyer. And then at the same time, checking your ego of why am I getting this dog? And
Yeah.
that's something we start all our consults with. Like, clients that have weird dogs, I'm like, so why'd you get this dog? And 90% of the time, either I had one before, or so and so, my friend, sister, brother-in-law, whatever, they had one as a really great dog and never had these problems. So let's talk about traits.
Yeah.
And then we had to talk about those things. So, it's crazy. You have to understand, there's a lot more to do it than just the name of the breed and the look.
Yeah, well, and that's a great point about breeders just breeding for looks. And anytime you go through generations of something that's only being selected based on how it looks, you lose character aspects. So it was really funny. There's somebody on our protection ranking video that was like, just admit it, you like nervy dogs over power breeds. And it's like, well, actually, if you really look at how breeders are trending in America, the power breeds are becoming nervy because they're only going for looks and they're not going for jobs. Whereas at least with German Shepherds and Malinois, you have a lot of kennels that just focus on working lines, or at least sport lines, where they're breeding for something, some sort of characteristic. So my neighbors have a Corso, 10-month-old Corso. This dog is already 120 pounds. She has to walk it at night because he tries to lunge for anyone that he sees. And he's silent. He won't bark. He just wants to go. And he can't see a cat without wanting to chase it, right? You're telling me an estate protection dog has that high of a prey drive outside of his own territory, and he's acting like that? It's a bad time waiting to happen. And I don't want to just pick on the Corsos, but there's just this infatuation that people seem to have with them.
Yeah, I'm the same way. So, like, I want to go back to something you said there really quick about the predatory instinct and the dog not barking. When a canine switches into a true predatory sequence where they're going to chase something and catch it, they're silent simply because they don't want to scare it off and run away. A dog not barking and going into that sequence, that's scary. That's true predatory. I want to catch and kill. About it, like, if you're a hunter, you don't go out into the woods making a bunch of noise. You're silent. You want to be quiet and be silent as possible so you don't spook anything.
And that's completely incorrect for that breed of dog.
True. That is something that should not be very high in it, especially if you're looking for that, like, estate protection, even personal protection. You don't want something like that. You want something that wants to stay close. The threat's gone. It's over with, right? Back with my owner. Life is good again.
Getting a breed of dog, it can be a reflection of what fits in your life. Certain people love having just a happy-go-lucky dog. That's great. Some people love having a more intense dog. That's great. It can be a reflection of your life, but it doesn't change who you are fundamentally. You're not going to become a tougher person, a better person, a more respectable person just by virtue of getting a certain dog breed. And, your choice of dog breed, and we talk about this in consultations, your choice of dog breed should be based on, one, what your goals are for the dog, and two, what the reality of your lifestyle is. If you live in a studio apartment and you have a sedentary lifestyle, don't get a Malinois.
Yep. Yeah, I actually just had this conversation with a girl who called me with some bully breeds. She had a bully breed. She had two of them, an older one and a younger one. And she's telling me about all these hours that she works and 12-hour days, this and that. We talked about prey drive and just the traits of dogs and playing with them and getting these things out so they stop self-advocating. But then at the end of it, I'm like, when do you plan on training? And she's like, huh? I'm like, you just told me you work these insane hours.
Yep.
When are you going to train? That was pretty much it, because the answer was, I'm not. I can't. And I basically left her with the conclusion of like, you shouldn't have got these dogs.
Yeah. If you had a significant other and you never spent any time with them, you wouldn't have a very good relationship. If you had a child and you never spent any time with them, you wouldn't have a very good relationship. So why do people act like dogs are so far removed from living things that they can just have them in their house and give them food and water and everything else will take care of itself? You know, there's a relationship aspect to training. You know, I'd hate to think like, forget the luring and the marking and this is how you do sit. Like, does your dog like being with you? You know, if you ask somebody like that, like, what does your dog like to play with? Oh, he's got a lot of toys. No, no, no. When you play with your dog, what does he like to play with? Oh, I don't know. He just has a lot of toys. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, it's funny. I have a client that I work with, and he's a mastiff, and I had another client that basically donated like a herding ball for him, and I said, let Murphy go play with this, take it home, and see how he does. And they're texting me like, oh my god, he loves this thing. You know, here's a situation where like they had no idea like that his dog would play with something like that.
Yeah. I almost want to do an episode one day about the concept of the human dog relationship. Like we've talked about how it's changed over time from being more utilitarian to being like parent child to now it's almost something else. But I almost feel like some people don't even know how to like interact with a dog. Like you've got one living in your house all the time and you don't even know how to just like be with a dog.
Well, I love the history of. I always love talking about the history of domestication and the different theories on it, and just how dogs fit into our human lives so well. But it is true, you know, the start of this, you know, podcast, you know, talking about, you know, no one really cares about your dog but you, right? And like the bodybuilding world, if anybody knows who Kai Green is, there's a famous line that he says, no one cares about you having 21-inch arms. You know, if you want, you know, 21 arms, you got to do the work. You got to eat the food. You got to go train. You got to do this. No one cares. You know, same thing. No one cares about your dog but you. You know, you're the one that has to take care of your dog. You're feeding it and providing for it and doing all those things. I get it. I love big animals. If I could have a Clydesdale, I would, but I won't. Know why? Because they eat a feed store's worth of food every day. But it would be badass. It'd be cool. Like, hey, you want to check out my horse? They're huge. That'd be cool to have. But no, I don't want it. You know, same thing with, you know, some mastiffs. If I could have a hippo, I'd probably have a hippo.
So we've been talking about like the purebred side of it, right? But there's the other side of it too, where I think there's a lot of people in the rescue world that they rescue dogs for the same reason. You know, to them I'm a person that rescues dogs. I'm a person that, you know, I'm a hero. I take care of things. I can fix things. And it's not that that's inherently always bad. You know, it's okay to feel good about yourself for doing good things. But it's when it becomes compulsive and it becomes something that you almost project onto the dog. Like there's people that will perpetually victimize their dogs in their minds and not understand that the dog is capable of moving past what happened to them.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that's where like the psychology of learning and things that people don't understand, because a learned behavior can be unlearned. There's a difference between a genetic trait and a learned behavior, and understanding that difference, it makes all the difference on how to deal with it and overcome those things. So if you have a dog that has a learned behavior that was never reactive to dogs, they got attacked by a dog and now they're reactive, that's a learned behavior. We can teach that dog that no, not all dogs are bad. And start going through that process with them. But a dog that's naturally genetically prone to just showing dog aggression from birth, you know, and maybe it gets worse as they get older and they start maturing, that's a different story. You know, it's like the old, you know, saying, you know, if I, you know, dog, hey, I'm tired of having 2 elbows, I want 3. So you can make my shoulder an elbow. No, I can't rehab a shoulder to an elbow. So you have to, at that point, manage things and do a lot of deconditioning, but it's always there. It's a genetic underlying issue.
So sometimes I wonder, like people have inherent traits, right? And most of us have to adjust some of our traits at least some of the time in order to integrate with society, right? So like I'm a really introverted person, you know, not necessarily shy, but I just like being around people is just not my thing, you know? Growing up, I had to learn different ways of being that would allow me to get through things I needed to get through. And sometimes I wonder if, like, that's kind of what some dogs have to learn, but they just learn in a different way. You know, I know what you naturally want to do, but right now you have to do something you don't want to do in order to get something you really want, which is Premack principle, you know?
So yeah, so there's a couple of things to that. So folks, get Taylor around 10,000 dogs and she's good. Get Taylor around 10,000 people, you're gonna find her in the corner in the fetal position crying. So secondly, what you're actually talking about is almost it's called instinctual drift. I want to say it was Bob Bailey that came up with it. And one of the things they were doing, they were teaching pigs how to pick up a big wooden coin and put it, I think, in like a piggy bank, like a box with a slot on top of it. What was happening is after a couple reps of this, the pig's natural instinct to root was kicking in. So it would stop picking up the wood coin, and just start flipping it. That's what pigs do. They root with their nose. They basically have a shovel on the end of their nose and they root things up. So that instinctual drift was taking place at that point. So, that the same thing can happen in dog world. You have a dog that has a really, really high prey drive and you try to, suppress that, but they're going to instinctually go back to that. They're going to go back to what their natural genetics are going to say there. So who was that? You looked it up there, Taylor? Who was that?
Keller and Marion Breland, the students of B.F. Skinner.
Yes, for instinctual drift. Yeah, it's very interesting stuff to look at that.
Yeah, so like I work a lot, so I make it a point that my day is structured to make sure that at least once a day, every dog is getting a drive met. Right. That's a time sacrifice I have to make to do that, right? So everybody's got their priorities in their life, and you have to sacrifice certain things for other things because you don't have enough time or energy to do everything you want to do. So if a dog is not something that you're willing to make one of those priorities that you can sacrifice some time for, get a fish. It's not like a car. People get cars that reflect their self-identity, right? So I want to seem like I'm a hardworking blue collar person. I'm going to go get a pickup truck, even though the only thing I put in the back of it is water bottle cases.
Groceries.
Right. Or I want to seem like I'm young and hip because I'm having a midlife crisis, so I'm going to go buy a Corvette in my 50s, even though I don't have the money for it. The difference is those things aren't alive, and those things don't suffer like dogs do.
It's funny you brought up cars because I remember there was this time I was in California. I was down in Beverly Hills area, and I was in my Jeep Cherokee Sport. Bumper to bumper traffic. We're doing like 3 miles an hour. And I look over to the car to my left, and it's a Ferrari, and I'm watching this guy pump this clutch. And I was like, must be nice. You have a $500,000 car, can do 180, and we're both doing 5 miles an hour.
That's kind of funny.
And so I've always told people for many years, like, the European cars are meant for the Autobahn. They have roads that have unlimited speed limits. So if you own any type of high-end car like that, you will never drive that car to that car's capability. So sure. In essence, you're doing yourself and that car a disservice. It's never going to be on a place where it can actually reach its top performance and you see that top performance.
You could say that same thing about some dogs out there. Like there's somebody out there that imported most well-bred European Doberman just because they could, because they thought it looked pretty, and they never do anything with it.
Mm-hmm. It's sad. Yeah, because it's a waste of the genetics, they're just going to waste, really. And if it has a good life and you're enjoying the dog, but the dog will never have, what it can do.
Yeah, but to that dog, I was telling Omar with Bowie, I was like, she is rarely happier than when she is biting onto something and pulling. Mm-hmm. Because there's something in her little Bowie brain that when that's going on, she's like, this is the best thing ever. And so that dog that was bred for this thing, when that dog gets to bite something, it's the best thing ever. And they're not going to get that.
It's true. But you're definitely seeing it. I'm seeing it as far as the calls I'm getting. A lot more of the bully breeds, XL bullies, Dobermans. And again, I put the onus on the breeder, not screening your client well enough. What they're getting.
My God, you didn't tell this person, you know what this dog is for, right? Of course not. They want money. I get it. But
yeah, whenever money's exchanging hands, question it. There's an ethical side to it, right? You always want to question when money's involved. What's going on? What's the ethics behind this? Especially when dealing with breeders. And if they're just like, oh yeah, come pick your puppy up. that's a problem. If they're not going through a screening process, asking you questions about the dog, what you're gonna be doing with the dog. Most breeders will have a breeding contract that you're gonna sign regarding the dog's health and all that fun stuff, and their guarantee as well.
Some of the very best breeders in the world will not let you pick your puppy. They will tell you you have to fill out extensive paperwork explaining who you are, why you want the dog, and I will pick the dog that I believe best matches you.
Yeah, that duck troller, that Nova Scotia duck trolling dog, the hand select who gets these dogs, and they knew several people that put in applications to try to get one. They got denied. So, but yeah, you definitely need to know what you're getting yourself into. I think that's the biggest takeaway from this podcast is understand the breed and ask yourself, do that ego check. Why am I getting this?
Yeah.
Right? Like, there's people right now listening to this call. They're listening to this podcast that are driving a car simply to keep up with the Joneses.
Oh yeah.
They're driving a car. It's $800, $900 car payment, and if they drive one extra day this week too much, they won't have gas money on Friday. I have it written on the website. There's people out there that think they want a Yorkie, when at the end of the day they probably just need a good lab. More than 50% of dogs are rehomed in their lifetime.
Yep.
Simply because someone goes, oh, well, I'll just give it up.
Yep.
Actually, I'm 90% sure I met a dog today that was a potential client dog that was given up to a rescue.
Wow.
Because the story was exactly why they called me. Remember the chicken? Remember the chicken one?
Yeah.
I went to Fuzzy Friends Rescue today. The executive director, Sam, is a good friend of mine. And we're out there. He's kind of telling me the dog's different stories. And he starts telling me about this dog. And I was like, I'm pretty sure I talked to the owner.
Well, that was the phone call where they're like, yeah, we keep the dog in the crate like 20 hours a day. And when we let her out, she goes crazy. She's jumping on everybody, jumping on everything.
Yeah, understand what you're getting yourself into. And it's for the long term. If you go into it with that mindset, you make different decisions. There's actually a really great book written by Simon Sinek called The Infinite Game. And it's about the decision making, primarily within business, about how you make different decisions when you're making decisions based off of it never ending.
Yeah.
So if you're building a business with the end goal of, hey, I'm going to build this up and sell it off in 5 years, you make completely different decisions than if, hey, I want to keep this thing for generations.
That's a great premise.
So getting a dog with the understanding of, what if this dog lived forever? Would I still get this dog? Or if rehoming was not an option? Having those types of thoughts when you're getting a dog is very critical in the decision making, because I guarantee you'll make different decisions. And that's why I really like getting from rescues, because most rescues, especially they're reputable, will give you like a week trial. Like, hey, just take the dog home for a couple nights, see how it does. See if it fits in your lifestyle, see what it's like. And then you have a couple sleepless nights and you're like, screw this, I don't want a puppy. So you have that ability to, trial run the dog before you're actually committing. I think more people should get from, I'm all for like quality breeding, because I think the genetic gene pool of quality is dwindling.
What was the breeder thing that you sent me the other day where you were like, what the fuck is going on? They called it the Colorado Mountain Dog or something.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, we bred collie into this dog to make it a good family dog. And it's a mix between an Anatolian Shepherd and something else and something else. And you're just like, what the actual hell are you doing, dude?
Yeah, the Pyrenees, Anatolian Shepherd, collie, and something else. And they're like selling this dog, these puppies, as if they're like the ultimate like livestock guardian. And like, what? Why?
What about the Anatolian Shepherd made you go, you know what? I could make that better.
I can do better than 500 years of genetics. Yeah. I don't know. Like, I have no idea what gets in these people's minds. And this is where you get like this. Why we have pounds that are full of dogs.
Yeah, no shit.
I went with Fuzzy Friends. I think they have like 44 dogs out there right now. If you're a first-time dog owner, or first time owning any type of large dog, getting a Pressa or getting a East German bred Rottweiler is probably not for you. And just like you wouldn't say, hey, my kid's getting their driver's license tomorrow, I'm going to give him a Lamborghini. No, that's a bad idea. You want to be able to understand what you're getting into and understand the dogs. And not saying that if you like, okay, yes, I know what I'm getting myself into. You have a good trainer lined up. You're working with a trainer and you're going through those steps. Full speed ahead. God bless you. Hope it works out. If you have that commitment, you know what you're getting yourself into. But, check the ego of, am I getting this to impress everybody else? Because no one cares.
You don't get a dog and become someone else,
If you're getting this dog to impress people, it's just like getting a car to impress somebody. Nobody cares.
Somebody might look at it for 2 seconds and be like, "Oh, that's cool," and that's it.
And that's all the mental calories that person's going to spend on it. But you're going to spend your mental calories of going, why did I do this? How do I fix this? And if I can't, how do I get rid of it? Just like getting $1,000 month car payment. It feels good at the time. You show it to everybody. Oh, that's really cool. And then 30 days later, 45 days later, that payment comes in the mail and you're stroking that check for $1,000. And your paycheck that week was $1,132. You're officially broke.
Yeah.
No one cares. No one cares. So get something that you want, that you enjoy, that you're happy with.
And if that's a Corso, God bless you.
Yeah, if you know what you're getting yourself into. No, that's funny. Anybody know Jay Cutler? Anybody know Mount Football Jay Cutler? But
I thought you were the Bears quarterback. Don't.
No. Bodybuilder. Bodybuilding, Jay Cutler, Mr. Olympia winner. He had some really, really small dogs. A couple little Yorkies. He had a little dog named Scrappy that he used to take everywhere with him. He traveled with him, taking bodybuilding shows and stuff. But a guy who's on stage, he's 290 pounds off season, he's 310, and he carried around a little Yorkie. Talking about a guy who's very secure with himself.
I agree.
And picking up Yorkie poop is very easy. You don't need a steam shovel, snow plow.
Jared, you'd have to have quite a bit to pick up hippo poop.
No, hippos, when they poop, they spin their tail and spreads it everywhere for you. And they're an herbivore. It's called fertilizer. Didn't think about that one. It's smarty pants.
So it's only fertilizer if it comes from an herbivore?
Yeah, that's where manure comes from. Horse,
but
elephant.
It has to be aged.
Yeah, it's just dried. The term shit kicking comes from? Ranchers and things, when you had cows, if you just leave a big patty of cow manure on the ground, nothing will grow because it's too big and just suffocates everything underneath of it. You gotta go kick it.
Because it's petrified.
Yeah, and you'd spread out the manure onto the ground.
This is very off topic from our original premise.
And if you want to talk about regenerative agriculture, we can do that too. So Joel Salatin, the founder and owner of Polyface Farms in Swope, Virginia, instead of going out and doing shit kicking, he lets chickens do it.
That's your Ferrari.
That's my Ferrari.
I read lots of things and I know lots of things. That's your Ferrari.
Yeah, it's always good to know things. Knowledge is power.
Yeah, and that's why we always say.
Yeah, that's what I always say. Train smart.